So good. And Paul and Jeannie are watching on the live stream. So why don't we thank Paul for that incredible message this morning. So good. And if you didn't get to see that, then I'm not sure you will, but you can grab your seats tonight. And so great to be together tonight. Let me just say, if you're new to Christian Life Church tonight, just want to give you a huge welcome and say it's so great that we get to be together in this space. And we believe that this place can be a home for many, many people. That's why we put that sign up. That's why it's in our foyer and sometimes on our screen, welcome home, because we believe that this place can be a home for many, many people. And even if you're in this place and you don't believe, it's a place where you can belong. And many people's stories are that they belonged before they believed. And so we really believe you'll find family, you'll find friends, and you'll find a whole load of fun in this place. And so it's so great to be together tonight. And you've come on an amazing Sunday. It's Rise and Build Sunday. And it's one of the Sundays in the calendar that needs to be bolded, highlighted every single year, because it's a Sunday which we get to move the vision of the church forward, but also to see God's kingdom advance. And it's a moment where we heard it this morning, that this thing is not built on the gifts and talents of a few, but on the sacrifices of many. And so this is a moment where we all get to play a part in seeing God's kingdom advance and His church move forward and see it actually explode. Anyone believing for that as we give and as we move forward as a church? Hey, little rule, one claps, all claps. We're all in there. And we don't do golf claps either. But don't clap at like the most inappropriate moment. Know what some of you young people are like. Good. I want to speak tonight, and I'm just going to speak something different to what Paul spoke this morning. I want to speak from the subject, faith for the future. Faith for the future. And if you've got a Bible, turn to Matthew 4. We're going to look at verses 18 to 22. They'll come up on the screen as well, so you can follow along there. But I'll read them off the big Bible on the screen. Says this: as Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, called Peter, and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. Come, follow me, Jesus said, and I will send you out to fish for people. At once, they left their nets and followed him. Going on from there, he saw two other brothers, James, son of Zebedee. What a great name. Next child, Debbie. Zebedee. Zion and Zebedee. Come on. It's prophecy right there. It was meant to be Baz and Gaz. But we're going with Zion and Zebedee. James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John. They were in a boat with their father, Zebedee. Thanks for letting us know that he's their father, even though you said the son of Zebedee as well. But anyway, preparing their nets. Jesus called them. And immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. I love this because you've got two sets of brothers. You've got Andrew and Simon, who later gets his name changed to Peter by Jesus. And that's why it says Simon called Peter. And then you've got James and John, the sons of Zebedee. And in this moment, Jesus is just walking by the Sea of Galilee. He sees these two sets of brothers, maybe different times, and he just calls them and says, hey, come follow me. Come follow me. And in that moment, they left everything and followed after Jesus. They followed after Jesus. You see, I really believe that there was something within them that was committed to the future. Something within them that just decided that there seems to be more life, more future, something greater if I begin to follow Jesus. The question for us tonight is, are we more committed to the future or to the past? It's such an incredible question, because I think the majority of us, if not all of us, would say with our words, I'm definitely more committed to the future. But the question is, do my actions match up with what I'm saying? Because I really believe that in life, we tend to get this magnet that just pulls us into the past constantly, and we end up being more committed to the past or even to today than actually what God has for us in the future. Recently, I've been to America the last week for 6 days and got to spend some incredible time with Dwayne White and his church and the network of churches they're a part of, and got to speak. And Dad was meant to come with me, and so he made me go. No, I'm joking. He didn't. And I went and had an amazing time. And I was flying back on the Monday night it was there, and getting back Tuesday morning here. And I had this, I had to fly from Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth to New York. And I had 56 minutes from when my plane landed in New York to get on my other plane in New York. Now, I was pretty, nervous because I'd never done this. Going out, I'd had to travel from Heathrow to Detroit and do again the changeover. But what happened in Detroit was that I had to go through passport check, all of that. It was really slow, and I had an hour and 40 minutes to change planes. I made it within 10 minutes. And now I was pretty scared going to New York, but it was actually dead easy. I was on the plane with 30 minutes before we were taking off. It was dead easy. As I sat on the plane, I looked around, making sure no one's going to sit next to me. I was in a 2-seat, making sure no one's going to sit next to me so that I've got all the leg room that I need so I can put my legs up. I didn't get an upgrade because I wasn't with Reverend Paul Benja. And though he's never had an upgrade until he took me last year. I'm just saying. I didn't get an upgrade. But then there was this little girl who was sat on the back row. I was near the back, and she was sat on the back row. Her parents were sat just in front of her, and she sat on the back row. I'd heard the conversation. The parents had been going, do you want to sit with Mummy or Daddy? And she kept going, no one. No, you've got to sit with Mummy or Daddy. No one. And I'm going, this is just like Zion. This is just like Zion. And so eventually parents relented because they're thinking there's a plane full of people here. Everyone's staring at us. Let's just let us sit in the row behind us for an easy life. Well, this businessman gets on and he walks along. I quickly put my legs up just to make sure he doesn't sit in the seat next to me. He walks past, and that wasn't his seat next to me, but it was next to the little girl. And he sits next to the little girl, and he sits there, and, she smiles, and she says something, Mummy, Daddy, someone sat next to me. And I'm like, oh, I want to see Zion now in this moment. And then someone calling me. If it's you, stop it. Yeah, it's my dad. Sorry, Dad. And then the businessman asked the little girl, where are you headed? Where are you going? Are you going home? Or are you going on holiday? I guess we've all been asked that question. Maybe you've seen someone and you've been asked that question. Where are you going? Where are you headed? Well, this little girl, being a girl, decided to share a whole load more detail than she needed to. I'll ask Debbie something, and I get a 20-minute answer for a yes. Debbie weren't laughing at that point. Oh, no. And so, where are you headed? So this little girl decides to tell this businessman all about a mum and dad who are sat in the seats in front. My dad does this job, and my mum does this, and, she decides to tell the whole story. By the end of the conversation, the little girl's not even answered the question, where are you headed? I guess at times we've been asked the question, where are you headed? Many times we live in this state of confusion because we don't know where we're headed. We don't know where we're going. We don't know what's coming next. Or maybe we reach where we were headed. You had a plan, and you had something you wanted to achieve, and you achieve it, and then all of a sudden it leads to this confusion moment. And what ends up happening is we end up living for the moment. We end up living for the moment. That actually, rather than living in the moment, we end up living for the moment. You see, today's message in society is just that, live for the moment. You know, who cares? You know, life doesn't mean anything, so just live for the moment. Just try and get everything and, you know, just live for these moments. Just live for these moments. And if that would improve my life, I'd sign up straight away. But actually, it's destructive. It destroys us. And we begin to make decisions that are just for moments and become isolated to our future. You see, we should live in the moment. There's good things about putting your mobile phone down and switching it off and not checking Twitter every 2 seconds or Instagram and looking at people's filters. But actually living in the moment is a good thing. It's what God wants us to do. He wants us to live in the moment. But he's not calling us to just live for a moment where, many Christians just live for the moment. Oh, when revival hits, we'll just live for that moment. Or when Jesus returns, we'll just live for that moment. But actually, Jesus called us to live in the moment, to build for the future, to realize that, as we heard this morning, that we are a move of God, that actually we can take this into our everyday lives. Many times we can plan for these moments, but we have to realize God's plan is better than my plan. His thoughts, his ways are higher than my ways. He has a better plan. And here's the incredible thing is that you have a future. We all have a future. In this place, we all have a future. Whether you are 16 years old in this place or whether you are 65, 70, we all have a future. But many times when we get asked the question, where are you headed? We attach it to maybe our careers, maybe the things that we do. Imagine I just saw you. Where are you headed? I'm going back to work. Yeah, but what about in life? Where are you headed? Well, I'm believing for this promotion. I'm believing for this. And they're all good things to believe for. But many times we reach those moments and we end up in confusion because it's like, what do I need to do next? What comes next? But it's deciding today that, yes, I have a future, but God has a better plan. Let's not just make decisions that just affect like today or just affect like for the moment, but actually let's make decisions today that affect our future, but also future generations. That's what we're doing today with Rise and Build. We're not just making a decision for today. We're doing that so we can improve what we do today, but with the future in mind, that actually this is going to affect generation after generation after generation. The Icon Church will not die, but actually it'll keep going and keep going and keep going. That this is what God has for us. He has a better plan for our life. See, today is about the future. It's about today in the sense of we're going to give today, but as we give today, it's about the future. You see, we're one church in 3 locations, and me and Debbie have the incredible privilege of leading our Derby location, which is going amazing. And this morning we had 11 new people and 2 decisions on Rise and Build Sunday, which is amazing. But let me tell you, from this stage, there was a Rise and Build offering that said, hey, we're going to launch Derby. And guess what? People who gave into that Rise and Build offering might have only thought of that moment. But guess what? It's having impact in the future from that moment, and it will continue to have impact. Imagine what we could do in this place as we decide God has a plan, that we have a future, that actually today we can give into the future, and who knows what God can do when we all do what we can do today. Because God has a better plan. What we sow today will impact the future more than we will ever realize. So you have a future. Look at 1 Corinthians 2 and verse 9. I love this. I love what God says. He says, however it is written, what no eye has seen, what no ear has heard, and what no human mind has conceived, the things God has prepared for those who love him. This is your future. This is our future as a church, that we can't understand what God has prepared for us. We just have to trust, because guess what? He's prepared good things for those who love him. He's prepared good things for those who love him. He has a future here for you. He's the one with the plan. It's deciding today, I'm not just going to live for these moments, but I'm going to live in the moment today and trusting God that actually I have a future. So here's a key to your future. Here's a key to your future, to have faith for the future. The key to success is in following Jesus. See, when I begin to follow Jesus, when I begin to follow after Jesus and, begin to follow him with everything I've got, that's when the plan starts to be revealed. I don't know the end of the plan, but the plan starts to be revealed. See, this is just a story of my life, that just following Jesus and with the help of good leaders, people who stuck by me even in, bad seasons, especially when I was like a teenager. Gavin Jane will be able to tell you how bad I was. And they'll say he's a little bit better now. But even in those seasons, having good people around me, people making sure I was serving, people making sure I was in church, parents who were big on church, so that actually, if you lived in our house, we're going to church every single Sunday. We're going to go. When the doors are open, we're going to it. No matter what excuse you come up with. But here's the thing, that I eventually got my own faith and own revelation of who Jesus was. Because people stuck by me. People did that and began to follow Jesus. Began to follow Jesus. That when the church said, hey, we want you to lead youth, began to do that after, I played drums for like 12 years. Did, as the first one to use a computer on projector in our church. I used to be on the acetates, if you know what those were, I used to pretend I was a DJ. Or I even used to pretend that, the bit that stuck up was a microphone as well. Used to do that, used to sing down it. And everyone, why is this, wet? And because I'd be singing into it every single day. I know, it's disgusting. But here's the thing, when we begin to follow Jesus, the plan's revealed. You see, never at any of those points did I think, I'll preach, I'll lead church. I just kept following Jesus. Led youth and kept following Jesus, and all of a sudden plans started to be revealed. If you'd have told me when we first took on youth at 22 that this past week I'd have been in America preaching, I'd have gone, no, never. It's not happening. But the plans start to be revealed when we follow Jesus, when we follow after him. And the key to success is in following Jesus. It's a declaration that says, wherever he goes, I'm going. Whatever he's into, I'm into. You see, Jesus said this, it's not very often. He said, I'll build my church. Okay? It's one of the few things he said he will build. He will build the church. He will build the church, and nothing will stand against it. He will build the church. So if he's into the church, okay, I'm going to be into the church. If he says he's building the church, I'm building the church. That's why our declaration as a church is, Jesus said he'll build the church, and our declaration is, so will we. So will we build the church. And so in this story, you've got these two sets of brothers who just get called by Jesus, and simple calling of, come follow me, and I'll make you fishers of men. Hey, there's a bit of future there, but not everything's been revealed. Not everything's been revealed. But if we take Peter as an example from these two sets of brothers, Peter's story is incredible because as he followed Jesus, these plans for him start to be revealed. These plans start to be revealed. We heard it this morning that Peter stood up with the 11. He needed the 11, but it was him that stood up because this was a plan. This was something that Peter was called to do. Look what Jesus says to him in Matthew 16, verse 16 to 19. I love this. It says, Simon Peter answered, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Jesus replied, blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. You see this story? Peter gets called, come follow me and I'll make you a fisher of men. He takes this journey, and halfway through this journey of walking with Jesus, he gets this revelation that Jesus is the Messiah. Jesus changes his name to Peter, which means rock. And on this rock, on that revelation that I'm the Messiah, I'm going to build the church, but you're going to play an amazing part in this. This was Peter's story, all because he made a decision, I'm going to follow Jesus. But here's the thing, he made that decision, and he had to leave some things behind. He had to drop some nets. He even had to leave his father. There's an incredible account in Mark, and it talks about James and John. And it even says in Mark, in the account of this story that I read about the two brothers earlier on, in Mark, it says that actually James and John left their father, Zebedee, in the boat. Like, see you, Dad, we're off. You can do all the work now. You can do everything yourself. You see, we have to begin to follow Jesus into the future he has for us. It's what we're doing as a church. We're following Jesus into the future he has for us as a church. And it's a decision that, hey, not our plans, but your plans, Jesus. That actually we believe that you've inspired us to move forward. You've inspired us to go further forward. And today is all about following Jesus with everything that we have. With everything that we have, with the resources that we're able to give, it's about following Jesus like never before. And for some of us, it means that following Jesus means that we're going to have to get out of a boat and we're going to have to leave some stuff behind, or we're going to have to give some stuff away. But guess what? We have a future in Jesus that is far greater than the future that we could plan for ourselves. And so today, the key to our success is in following Jesus. Maybe the key to success in following Jesus is getting out of the comfortable, and deciding I'm going to follow after Jesus. Maybe it's deciding, hey, sometimes I'm just going to have to risk it and take a risk for Jesus. You see, the second thing about this is, and I forgot my title already, is you got to fight for your future. See, this is called faith for the future. But if you got faith for your future, you got to fight for your future. You got to fight for your future. You see, sometimes we have to fight for this. There are many times, okay, when Sunday morning rolls round and my alarm goes off at 6:30, 7:15, and there are many times that it's the fight. It's the fight. Because it would be easier to just stay in bed. It would be easier not to do everything. It would be easier to do that for that moment. But I'm believing there's a bigger future that's worth fighting for. There's something bigger worth fighting for. That it would be easier just to turn up and sit and listen, and that's great, and then go. But what about if we all decided, I'm going to fight for the future of the church. I'm going to fight for the future of this, because the church is the hope for the world. And that actually Chesterfield needs church. Derby needs Icon Church. Sheffield needs Icon Church. Mansfield needs Icon Church. And so today we decide we're going to fight for the future, because we're going to decide we're going to walk forward in everything. You know, what would cause you to have a fight? Like a physical fight. What would cause you? Maybe you're like, you know, what they call a shrinking violet. You know, you're like, no fighting, I'm a peacemaker. Or, you know, a fight kicks off and you're the one who's like standing quite, you know, away from it. And you're like, yeah, don't fight, please. Don't do it. I'm usually the guy who kind of steps in the middle and you know, kind of holds off, especially at football. I'm the one who's, you know, trying to be the peacemaker. But there's been a couple of times where I've wanted to fight. I know, I'm human. I have these feelings as well. It's all right. You can all breathe a sigh of relief as well if you've had those feelings. Jesus forgives. Okay. Even yesterday, I had a moment in the game yesterday. This little right back had kicked me twice. I was like, this is not going to work out good for you. It's not going to work out good for you. And so like I start talking to him. I said, look, mate, you want to go steady in your tackles, okay? Otherwise, it's not going to end good for you. And he was up for the fight. He's like, do it then. Well, no, I just wanted to have a conversation. I didn't know. That was what was going off in my head. Outside, I'm going, seriously, mate, it's not going to end good for you. Whereas I know I'm not going to do anything at all. But I know I've got some lads on my team who might just step in for me. And I'm doing this. And so one of my friends who's hearing this conversation says, Nathan, can you do that? You're a Christian. I went, look, Jesus said I only have to turn a cheek once more. So he's hit me twice, so I'm in. And the right back's like, what are you on about, Jesus, and all of this? He didn't kick me after that. It's probably because I didn't get anywhere near him because I was so slow. But do you believe in your future? Do you believe in the future of the church so much that you're willing to fight for it? That we're willing to fight for it, that we're willing to give everything. That we're willing to say, hey, here's, blood, sweat, tears, everything, time, energy, everything. Because do you know what? I believe in this because this is the kingdom advancing. This is God's kingdom. This is his plan advancing. And so if he's into it, I'm into it. I'm going to fight for this. I'll get up early. I'll sacrifice. I'll fight, against the comfortable. I'll fight against that because do you know what? My future is greater than my past. And so I'm not going to be pulled back to the past, but actually I'm going to press on to the future that God has for us as a church, as an individual. I'm going to fight for greatness. I'll do whatever it takes to follow Jesus, believing he has more for me. We've got to have some fight in us. Got to have some fight in us. I'm so thankful for the example of my parents, Gavin and Jane, who definitely had some fight in them building this church. Because I watched this church go from around 100, 120 people, okay? And we began to change the culture of the church to think of the future. And I watched the church grow from 120 to like 30 people. It grew. But I saw the fight. I saw the fight for like years that this is going to work. This is what God's called us to do. This is what God's called us to do. Imagine, that's from 4 people who had the fight. Because let me tell you, I had my doubts. I'm sorry, Dad. I had my doubts at times. But 4 people who had the faith, and maybe they had doubts and worries in moments. But guess what? They had the fight that we're going to keep doing. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep going. We're one church in 3 locations now. But guess what? There's a greater future. Imagine if we all had a fight in us that just kept saying, we're going to keep moving. We're going to keep moving forward because God has got a greater future for us, greater than anything we've seen before. There's a greater future. We've got to begin to fight for it. We've got to fight for our future as well. Look at what Ephesians 6 and verse 16 says. It talks about the armor of God and talks about putting on all of this armor. And it says this, in addition to all of this, take up the shield of faith. Faith for the future. Take up the shield of faith with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. We don't give him much credit in here, but there is someone out there who's trying to stop your future, who's trying to stop you walking into your future. But if we can take up the shield of faith and decide, I'm going to walk into my future, that these arrows are not going to hit me, these arrows are not going to stop me walking into the future, that actually I can see these off, we have a great future we can walk into. But it's time to start to fight for our future. It's time to start to fight for it. And as the whole band come back, and before we give, the last thing is we have to make more room. You see, faith for the future is deciding we're going to make more room. We're going to make more room to reach more people. We're going to make more room for God to move in people's lives. We're going to make more room. And that's what we're doing today, that we're making room. That as we give, we're making room for God to move. I love this story in 2 Kings chapter 4, verses 1 to 7. It says this, the wife of a man from the company of the prophets cried out to Elisha, Your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that he revered the Lord. But now his creditor is coming to take my 2 boys as his slaves. Elisha replied to her, how can I help you? Tell me, what do you have in your house? Your servant has nothing there at all, she said, except a small jar of oil. Elisha said, go around and ask all your neighbors for empty jars. Don't ask for just a few. Then go inside and shut the door behind you and your sons. Pour oil into the jars, and as each is filled, put it to one side. She left him and shut the door behind her and her sons. They brought the jars to her, and she kept pouring. When all the jars were full, she said to her son, bring me another one. But he replied, there is not a jar left. Then the oil stopped flowing. She went and told the man of God, and he said, go, sell the oil and pay your debts. You and your sons can live of what is left. I love this story because it's such an incredible story of life, because, there are many things in life that, empty, and we get filled and then empty again. Like when you're hungry, you're empty and then you get filled and you're like, I feel so fulfilled, but then 4 hours later, you're empty again. Or 2 hours later, if you've got a big appetite. Tell you what, in America, they eat some big steaks. Like, wow, yeah, it's lasting me a full year. What about, your car? Empty. Anyone ever play the game? When it's empty and it says 0 miles, I can get 10 more miles out of you. I can get 10 more miles out of you. You play that game with your car. And but how good is it feeling when you see that petrol needle at full? Like, it's a great feeling, but it becomes empty again. How many of us know that sometimes we can leave Sunday church and we can be filled, but by Wednesday we can feel empty again? But that's good, because that's what God's called us to do. He's called us to be filled up so we can go and spill out into our world, so we can go and live in our worlds as God has called us to, but then be filled again and again, so we can keep emptying ourselves. We can keep emptying ourselves to actually say, God, I need you to fill me again. Fill me with your word. Fill me with your passion. Fill me with your grace again and again and again. See, that's what we're doing today. We're saying, hey, God, here's our jars. Here's what we have. This is all that we have. I love this story because Elisha doesn't say, hey, just go and ask for a few jars. He says, no, don't just ask for a few. Get a lot. You see, as a church, we're not just asking for a few, we're asking for a lot. Why? Because we're believing that God will fill every single sacrifice, every single gift, every single thing to make more room for more people to hear the gospel, to make more room for actually God to move, and to make more room so that actually we can be filled up again and again and again and again. It's deciding today that if I've got faith for the future, I'm going to make more room. God is looking for people to be emptied, to be filled. To be emptied, to be filled again. To be emptied, to be filled again. So we're going to give in our offering right now, in our Rise and Build offering. And we can begin to prepare that tonight. We're going to prepare it all together. And I wonder if, Debbie, you can get me a pen and the Rise and Build. Because we're going to fill it in together. There's a moment. I wonder if someone had fetched the key.